We appreciate it.
No problem.
Just to kick us off, and before we get started with questions, do you mind just to give us kind of a preview to Richmond and what makes that track unique and the challenges that you often face when you race there?
Richmond's just a super technical track. It gets really slick. The cars fall off a lot. You lose a lot of forward drive over the run. You lose a lot of center turn. You get really loose in on the brakes. It's a heavy braking track. So there's just a lot of challenges from the driver's side and from the setup side to try to be really balanced over the course of a run.
All right, good. We're going to go ahead and kick for questions. If you have a question, a friendly reminder, please use raise your hand method within the Zoom platform, or send us a chat and we will monitor that area as well. And to kick us off with questions, we're going to go to Dustin Long. Go ahead, Dustin.
Thank you. Jeremy, a couple things. One, in this last year plus of COVID, and so much has changed. One of the things about teams is that you don't unlearn something. So you guys have learned how to do things. I'm curious just how the dynamics changed with the team. I know Joey Logano's talked in the past that he feels like it's been more difficult for him to be a leader of a team because he doesn't have as much contact. I'm curious about how you see the dynamic of that, or what other changes have kind of come across because of the reduced capacity at the track, and how that's maybe changed things moving forward, even when things kind of have the chance to go back to a normal.
Yeah, it's certainly a much more challenging environment to try to be a leader and try to be, participate or get everybody together at once. I think we used to have a lot of team meetings that we don't have now with the whole group, and you just are very conscious about gathering big groups of people like that. So there's a lot more individual phone calls and texts and individual meetings with certain folks throughout the team, and try to meet with the pit crew guys when you can and at a distance, and try to do the right things, but still have as much FaceTime with all your team members as you can. It's just you just have to find different ways to do it, but I certainly changed the game in that regard.
Also, with NASCAR moving toward opening up garage access, looking at for next month, how does that impact you guys, and where are things like for you personally, and also for especially your road crew, in terms of vaccination, as you look at garage opening and more people being around your team?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not really sure who's gotten the shot and who hasn't. I have an appointment. I don't have it yet. I do have an appointment scheduled, but it's just it's one of those things where it's encouraged. I think it'd be good to. It seems like it's going okay, and there's no reason not to get it. So it's something that we're encouraging everybody to do, but it's a choice, and I understand if somebody doesn't want to get it. So I don't really know who has it and who doesn't, but read this weekend that they're going to start letting fans back in. I think from that regard, I think our sport is not sustainable without fans, and I think the level of access that we've always provided is second to none compared to other sports. The ability to essentially be on the sidelines throughout a weekend is something that's pretty cool about what we do. So I think it's exciting to see some of that come back for the fans, and I think it'll be good for the sport.
Okay, our next question will come from Bob Pockris. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Jeremy, last year at Richmond, during that second stage, you had some teams pitting once and some teams pitting twice, and then it seemed during the final stage, everybody's like, oh, pitting twice seems to be the best. So I'm curious, should we expect everybody to just pit twice in those last two stages if they're green, or is there anything different with it being a day race or any other different things that might impact those decisions?
Yeah, I think day race, I almost expect a little bit more fall off. It doesn't look like it's going to be really hot. It looks like a fairly overcast prediction, so that may affect it some. But I think most of the teams will look at the fall off from the first two stages and come up with a strategy that mathematically makes the most sense for that last stage. And I'd say there's a good chance of that for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take another question from Daniel McFadden. Go ahead, Daniel.
Hey, Jeremy. a couple of weeks ago, the next gen car had its first test with all 3 manufacturers on track at the same time at Martinsville. I'm wondering right now, where are you in your preparation for getting ready for that car next year, getting plugged in, getting info about it compared to your just day-to-day stuff that you're typically doing week to week?
Yeah, it's on the radar, and like I keep up with what's going on with it, but it's not a primary focus right now. Our focus is getting this 2-car in victory lane and getting our spot in the playoffs locked up and start making another run at Phoenix and trying to get back in the Final Four. So we've got to put a lot of effort into this year, but allocate some time to work on next year and beyond as well. So it's on the radar, but it's a blip on the radar for me right now. We're trying to get this 2-car back in victory lane, and hopefully we can do that this weekend.
What about the next gen car has you most excited about getting your hands on it and finding out how everything works with it?
It's just anytime you have something that's brand new, there's an opportunity there to be the fastest out of the gate, and that's something that Team Penske takes a lot of pride in. Historically, through some of the rule changes, we feel like we've done a good job of adapting quickly, and hopefully that's something we can do again.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question will come from Ashley McCubbin. Go ahead, Ashley.
Thanks, Amanda. Hey, Jeremy, thanks for your time today.
Absolutely.
How would you rate your season so far with Brad Keselowski?
I feel like we've had a lot of speed, a lot of weeks, and the circumstances have prevented us from getting some of the finishes we wanted. I felt like we were in a good spot in Daytona, and that didn't work out. Felt like we've had a couple other races where, Phoenix, we were just a little bit off. We were so close, but, come home fourth, and had a power steering issue this weekend that kind of put us in a bad spot. We just had little things that have crept up that bit us, and, that's part of it, and that's part of racing, and I'd rather get that stuff out of the way now. But I feel like we've had times where we had cars that were fast enough to compete, and I feel like, we've got some great racetracks coming up for us in the next few weeks, and no reason we can't, turn our season into a really good season with a couple of wins.
And before working with Brad, you worked with Ryan Blaney. Between the two Penske drivers, how do they compare and contrast in having worked with both?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to, all the way back to Xfinity days, work with all of our drivers, with Joey as well. And, I always try to explain to people that they all have pretty much equal buckets of talent. If they had a bucket of experience, obviously Brad's is more full than Ryan's. I think, the thing about working with Brad is, he's a veteran in the sport. He's been to all these places so many times, and he has a lot of knowledge about what happens on a race weekend and how the tracks change throughout the weekend and how the races play out and all those things that are, these veteran guys are able to leverage. And, Ryan, you see that as he's continued to progress, and you see that every year he gets better and better. And that all that is a matter of combining the talent these guys have with the experience of knowing, what the racetrack, how your car's got to drive during practice, or how the race is going to change throughout the weekend, from start to finish through a race, of how you need to stay ahead on adjustments. And the things that, Ryan's learned over the years to have him where he's at now, to where, he's a lot more competitive than he was when he first started. And it's just a matter of experience. He's always had the talent, and all these guys that drive here at Team Penske are really talented.
Thanks for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Ashley. Okay, our next question is going to come from Lee Spencer. Go ahead, Lee.
Thank you, Amanda, and thanks for joining us, Jeremy. Brad had he was class of the field at Phoenix last year. Joey, on the other hand, said that he had a vibration, and I'm talking about the season finale. And I'm just kind of curious, when you kind of balance all the notes and what you have to go through, how do you plan for that track, knowing, what has affected these two cars in the past?
It's funny. I was looking back this morning at notes from one of the last day races with Brad, and the setup's very similar to what we're going to run and what we won with in the fall. So, we've always tried to have a very open book policy here, and everybody knows what everybody's running, and you're able to use all that information to try to build from history. And You know, as you look towards the short track package, I feel like that was one of the Team Penske strengths last year. We all ran really well at the short tracks, and we have to try to play off that. And the playoffs are still very heavily biased to the short tracks. So, you know, we had speed at Martinsville. We didn't have as much as we wanted. We had speed at Phoenix and didn't have as much as we wanted, but we were close. And I think, you know, if we can continue to learn from that and apply the things that we know and have learned, you know, there's no reason we can't go compete this weekend. So we get really excited about going to Richmond, get really excited about going to Phoenix and Martinsville, because those are all playoff races. So, you know, it should be fun, and, you know, looking forward to trying to win again.
And forgive me if this was asked already, and just tell me if it was, and I'll go back and read the transcript, but did you identify what caused Brad's problems earlier in the Martinsville race this past weekend?
It was a power steering issue. That investigation is ongoing. You know, we've gone through the process that you go through, tearing parts apart and trying to figure out what happened and try not to let it happen again. You know, we've made some changes and adjustments this weekend to try to keep it from happening again, and hopefully we made the right ones.
I'm just curious, because you want to, I would assume you try to eliminate any, you know, any gremlin that can affect the car going, you know, by the time you get to the final 10 races.
Yeah, absolutely. And it, you know, it's one of those things where it's, you know, parts that we've used before, and, you know, it wasn't anything new or different. It's just, we had an issue. And so our engineering group will take a deep dive into what happened and try to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Appreciate your time, Jeremy. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Okay, we'll take our next question from Claire B. Lane. Go ahead, Claire.
Thank you. I wonder, when you go to Richmond, you know, if you think about the desperation, or 3 short tracks in a row, or anybody still being upset with anybody, and if the intensity ramps up just because of the way the schedule falls, because the short tracks are always, you know, provide a little more, I guess, aggression from people.
It's not something I really think about. You know, I'm sure it exists, and I'm sure it's a real thing. And you know, there tends to be some hurt feelings whenever you leave Martinsville. But you know, I feel like it's not something that I'm going to dwell on, or I'll leave that up to the drivers to work that out amongst themselves. And we're going to stay focused on trying to make this discount tire Ford go fast in a circle this weekend.
Do you feel like with the next gen car coming up, and with all that everybody has been through with COVID, that you got to really work to keep employees from feeling like, oh, maybe I'll just, you know, leave and go home, and after they've had more time at home and more time working out of the house, et cetera? All teams got to work harder at that now?
I think it's just a different environment. I think, you know, the work environment, the work is still there. The work's still got to be done. You know, we still have to do the same things to be able to race at a high level. It's just a matter of how we adapted to how we do it. And that's going to change again. It's going to evolve. You know, we got so institutionalized, I call it. If anybody's seen the Shawshank Redemption, I talk about we're institutionalized to what we do. But we did it the same way for so long that, you know, it was a huge change at first, right? And we had to come up with new processes and new plans and new ways to be organized in a different way. And now that's normal. And so, you know, now we're institutionalized to that. So, you know, and hopefully at some point it kind of gets back to the old normal, and we get back to, you know, a different way again. And it's just a matter of, I think it shows the resiliency of the race teams, and I think it shows their adaptability and their, you know, willingness to overcome whatever obstacles get put in front of us to do what we have to do. And that's just kind of the racer's mentality.
And does some of that stuff you learned stay, though? Do you find easier ways, smarter ways to do things, and some of that stays when things get back?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I think, you know, the way we wound up on shifts, that we were able to be more efficient with some things and get things done in a shorter amount of time here and there. So I think some of that we're going to learn from and carry forward.
Thank you, and good luck this weekend. Thanks for your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take an additional question here from Dustin Long. Go ahead, Dustin.
Thank you. Jeremy, I know it's only 8 races in, but only 1 playoff point for your organization. 8 drivers have more playoff points. I know the gap probably is a little bit closer than years past, but how much of a concern is that to only have 1 playoff point at this time?
There's 18 races left, and there's a lot of good racetracks for us through the summer. I feel like some of these tracks that we're going to go to, are great racetracks for us. Looking forward to Darlington and, Kansas and Talladega. Not like these are great racetracks for Brad and great racetracks for us as a team. So, we've got to get that first win. And I think once you get the first one, it's, you see it with the 19, they got the first one, then not long they get the second one. And I think that we've had a lot of winners early in the season, but I think once the summer gets rolling, you'll start to see some repeat winners. And, our goal is to be one of them and get some playoff points before it starts. And, you have to win multiple races to get to the end of this thing. And we know that. So it's just, these things are hard to win, and a lot of things can happen beyond your control. And, once we get to where we can control a little more, I think we'll be in good shape.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have a follow-up question from Bob Pockris?
Yeah, Jeremy, I'm curious, teams lost the downforce they were getting off of the, kind of being able to use the wheel well, and the way NASCAR was inspecting it, and NASCAR cracks down on it this year, decides to use the template. So where can you still find downforce in that area now? Or do you you're just totally looking for downforce in other areas, and are teams starting to find that downforce, or is it almost a lost cause?
Well, it can never be a lost cause, right? That's what we do, is try to keep searching. So, whenever you get a template like that, that's pretty encompassing, that, holds you pretty tightly in an area, it's hard to work there, right? I mean, there's not a lot of, when you're given a template that has to fit watertight, there's not a lot of wiggle room there. So, it does kind of force you to look around in other places and other areas. But I think there's always the opportunity to find something new, and we're not going to stop looking. It's what we have to do to get better. And but I think the cool thing is it's the same for everybody. So I think, it has seemed to level the playing field a little bit. But, I think that's not a bad thing. That allows us to try to be the next ones to find the next thing, and everybody looks at it from that perspective. So it's certainly made that working in that area a challenge, and I think that was the goal.
You say you never stop looking, but I assume there are people who are starting to look at the next gen car and start looking for things there. Have you, when do you feel like will there be a time where you give up looking on this car to start focusing on next gen?
November 9th, I think, is the day after Phoenix. So there's still a lot to be gained this year, and there's still a championship to be won. So the manufacturers and the teams are going to work on the next gen stuff, and we'll talk through, how to be better and how to be prepared as we can be with it. But we've still got, wind tunnel tests scheduled out throughout the year to try to learn as much as we can, and be as prepared for the playoffs as we can be.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you spending a good 16 minutes with us this morning, and we wish you the best of luck this weekend in Richmond.
Thank you all very much.